Since the colonial period, the southwest of southern Cameroon has been an intense agricultural hub with vast and extensive arable land. Rubber, banana, and palm oil plantations, including the production of cocoa and coffee, have always attracted an enormous labor force from every corner. During the period of forced labor when the Germans were constructing the railway, hundreds of people in the coastal and central regions fled to the region we know today as Southwest. The same was obtainable with people of the Northwest, known at the time as Bamenda. It's always jokingly said that the laborers came in large numbers with their eyes closed, such that they wouldn't know how to find their way back home if at all they wanted to revolt against the German mistreatment. Even though people couldn't determine the colonial master's level of heartlessness, there's no record of such claims. Around the 50s, there was a decline in the demand for cocoa beans in the international market. The price of cocoa fluctuated because production outpaced demand, and consequently, the price fell. In 1962, cocoa producers and buyers allied to fight overproduction. Hence, farmers limited cocoa production. As years passed, the number of cocoa consumers and industries increased. There was little production but increased demand. In the 1970s, there was an excellent cocoa boom from $500/ton in 1971 to over $5,700 in 1977. Cocoa production being labor-intensive, there was labor demand as farmers fought hard to increase yields to enjoy the new economic boom. The massive labor force came from the Northwest since the Southwest predominantly produces. Even though many people from the Northwest owned land and farmers, that labor force came from one specific tribe, the Kam. The Kam people are naturally tall, slim, strong, and powerful. They had special knives designed for weed cutting and trimming cocoa trees to eliminate parasites and unwanted branches. There were three ways of doing the job: farmer ownership, tenancy, or what they call in local parlance a two-party, and hired and paid on the spot. Welcome to the fourth episode of Storytelling on the CA Network. Join us every Friday at 5 p.m. as we recount life experiences from an unpublished manuscript, The Driver. We want to thank our participants and new subscribers as we walk the journey of bringing to life past experiences. If you are joining us for the first time, please subscribe, comment, like, and share. Let's continue. If there was anything Smith might not have wished to happen to him, it was his father not getting the news that he had left school just a day after. However, fate stood against that wish. Sitting by him was someone from his village with the hilarious nickname, Try Yourself, who spoiled his mood. Try Yourself was a farmer from Kam, whose real name villagers found challenging to pronounce because Kam people are known to have names with long vowels in every syllable. Try Yourself didn't bother very much C. Smith. In his mind, what every question he had, he would ask upon stoppage. However, when SMOG got to Ekol, the junction village with Badoon, and stopped, Try Yourself stared at Smith, surprised he wasn't ascending. "Do you have another village ahead of you? I thought you were going home?" he asked. "Why don't you mind your business? Must I stop here? Kokobuma is ahead, I may stop there. I will mind my business the next, but now I demand to know why you are not in school in the middle of the term." "You demand to know as my father or who? Anyway, I'm going to Kumba, are you satisfied?" Smith asked with a recalcitrant tone. "I was going to shut my mouth since it's none of my business, but for being insolent, your parent will hear this. Whether you tell them or not, they will hear." Smith knew Try Yourself was a gossip. He remembered once how Try Yourself reported his cousin's brother, now in the military. Still, no one knew his whereabouts, and he had stolen a bag of cocoa with the help of their tenant, a malpractice Try Yourself was deeply involved in. The theft news was so scandalous that Smith's cousin ran from the village for months before he returned. SMOG was sailing smoothly on the muddy road, but Smith's heart was pounding, imagining how his parents would receive the news of his departure to Kumba. Try Yourself lifted the bag of pesticides he went to purchase. Many farmers experienced a late harvest because the cocoa trees bore fruits late due to the extended period of dry season. It was regular and heavy when the rain began, affecting young cocoa pods and producing black and yellow pods. Even though cocoa production experienced a boom, the increase in cocoa prices in the international market didn't translate to huge financial gains for farmers. The government created regulations and conditions on the beans' quality and incentives to produce beans that meet defined international standards. Most of the incentives were offering pesticides against fungus affecting young pods and insecticides. The Cocoa Marketing Board supplied these pesticides as regulated by the government in exchange for reducing the price of cocoa per kilogram. Worthy of note, the government and marketing board received these pesticides from international producing organizations for free as incentives to encourage farmers. Thus, rather than the farmers, the government and the marketing board officials benefited from the farmers' labor. Even more problematic to farmers, cocoa storekeepers distributing these pesticides deliberately reduced the quantity each farmer was supposed to receive. This created a quick shortage, compelling the farmers to buy from the storekeepers. Farmers, in most cases, found themselves in a complex web, from the government to the marketing board and storekeeper to private buyers. As mentioned, due to excessive rainfall and lateness for the cocoa trees to bear pods, farmers experienced a massive pesticide shortage, so Try Yourself traveled to buy some to boost a late harvest. Try Yourself was an impatient man who never waited or gave a chance for a story or something that happened in his presence to settle in his mind. Encountering Smith on the way to Kumba when he was supposed to be in school was a good incident, which qualified such hasty attitudes. Hence, upon reaching home, he went straight to Pa Asume's. Pa Asume sat on his veranda chewing roasted dried maize and boiled plums, pleased that he had overcome a hurdle that gave him sleepless nights when he raised his face and saw Try Yourself approaching. "Try Yourself, are you back? Pa Akane told me you traveled." Pa Akane pledged one of his farms for 2 years to Try Yourself, while the other was for a two-party. "Yes, I'm back," Try Yourself responded. There was a long bench by the veranda, and he sat down. Most cocoa trees bear pods late this year, and many pods, too. My patron and I had a shortage of pesticides, so I had to buy some. Can you eat some plums? They are very fatty with no mild taste. I appreciate it, Try Yourself responded. Pa Asume's wife, Mama Sarah, brought a bowl full. Unlike before, Try Yourself didn't deliver his message immediately. He started with a great conversational tone, allowing Pa Asume to enjoy his snack. "I have not seen Smith. Is he still home, or has he gone back to school?" Try Yourself asked. "School started long ago, and I visited him yesterday," Pa Asume replied. "Do you mean he's in school?" Try Yourself asked. "Where else could a student be if he left home for school?" Pa Asume asked. "Well, we say parents bear a child but not their mind. We could be here thinking he's in school but somewhere else." Pa Asume stared at Try Yourself and asked, "Is there something you have to tell me? I wish I weren't the one to deliver this message. Because Smith is everyone's child and, most importantly, he's focused. However, as I am a concerned citizen, it will be inconceivable to see a child going astray and fail to call him to order. As we speak, if the road is good, Smith should be in Kumba." That Pa Asume held dropped off his hands. Sarah, please, come and hear this," he called on his wife. "Goats have eaten my palm tree from the head. How do I believe what you just said? I wish I had evidence to prove, but we entered SMO. And upon asking him where he was going rather than coming home. Smith first insulted me for not minding my business before telling me he was on his way to Kumba." Sarah Pa Asume prolonged the call. "Come and hold me before I pass out. My ears are hearing what they ought not to." Mama dropped everything she was doing in the kitchen and rushed outside. "Your son has done it, Smith has abandoned school. He has put a cap on my head I have always been scared to wear. That cannot be true. Believe, try yourself to your detriment. My son cannot abandon school. Try yourself stood up. Everyone says I talk too much, but I don't lie. Even if I used to lie sometimes, I cannot lie about something this important. Smith is in Kumba as we speak. I will have to see it before. I have to go to Niti right away. Hold on, my husband, Mama Sarah urged. It's already too late to travel. Leave it for tomorrow or Monday. I would rather die on the way and know my son killed me than sleep in the house with the killer news that my son has abandoned school. I just recovered from the cold I returned with this morning. Pa Asume, your wife is right, leave it for Monday, not tomorrow. Smith may have just gone to Kumba to return, this is a weekend. I need to get a rest, try yourself said and left. Pa Asume went in, and Mama Sarah broke the news to her daughter Ibuda, who turned from fetching water. Ibuda couldn't believe his brother could do such a thing. As expected, Try Yourself didn't go home and shut his mouth. He concluded the narration of what he went through purchasing and bringing the pesticides home with Smith abandoning school. Upon hearing the news, Pa Akane picked up his walker and headed to Pa Asume's home. Sunday the next day, while Mama Sarah and daughter got set to go to church, Pa Asume was gnawing his teeth. The fever he came with from visiting Smith due to heavy rainfall had surfaced again. Ibuda gave her father some paracetamol to relieve him of the fever before they went to church. Against his wife and daughter's advice to travel because he was sick, Pa Asume got up with the third cockcrow on Monday and, embracing all odds, hit the road for Ngati. After walking for about a mile and sweating profusely, Pa Asume suddenly recovered from the fever. That tiny stretch of road the timber exploitation company dug was still muddy and slippery. Like many other areas engaged in timber exploitation, the road just served to facilitate the pulling of timber to the main road and not to meet villagers' requests as agreed before authorizing the exploitation. The majority had no economic benefits as they were found deep in the jungle with all its adverse effects destroying the flora and fauna. Timber exploitation had just become again after a pause of about 4 months due to nothing but the rains and bad roads. Though the showers had not completely stopped, prospectors were already in the forest, and the few logs not carried and abandoned due to rainfall were already being transported. Though the previous days had been so rainy, the timber road wasn't in poor condition as Kumba Mamp, the major highway leading to Smith's school. It was sandy loam soil, and the landscape was quite sloppy, especially the area where the road passed it favored percolation, and hence, there was good drainage. Timber lorries could move with relative ease. Some time ago, most timber men of that area lived in their village. Any strange person could quickly be sorted out or identified by attitude and behavior. The villagers liked them and complied with all their proposals, especially as they proved sincere. This prodigious welcoming resulted from the thought that the people meant well for the community. However, the exploitation had not fully commenced when the villages started building a disgusting attitude towards them. They were sharp to recognize the exploiters were seasonal men who only came to exploit their resources and not to stay or develop their community as intended and promised. Timber exploitation and lumbering are men's activities, and young adults were everywhere within the community. Most were unmarried, and few spouses weren't there with their wives. This immediately became a concern to various villagers, knowing that their daughters and wives were vulnerable in the presence of these men. It's not surprising many men have problems with their wives, as many young girls are pregnant. Such patterns of behavior were common in every community where they exploited timber. Amongst themselves, there was rampant blackmailing, skirmishes, and quarrels. After 3 years of living in Badoon, many became scared and left but still came to do lumbering. This resulted from an incident between Monsieur Louis, a French man who headed the lumber exploiting zone, and one of his workers, Daniel, an indigene and betrothed to Susan, the chief's daughter. Unfortunately for Daniel, he couldn't match Monsieur Louis, the French man, who fell head over heels in love with the young, pretty Susan. He seldom came there, but when he did, every girl within the vicinity wanted to partake in the bounties and freebies he brought. However, Susan was Monsieur Louis's preferred, but not to the knowledge of Susan's father. And to the displeasure of Daniel, he was helpless, afraid that he would lose his job. Even more belittling, his friends and co-workers were mocking him. All attempts to call Susan to order met the most formidable and coy resistance. If anyone hated how this love saga played out, it was Belong, Monsieur Louis's driver, when he came for inspection and supervision. Belong was amongst the best truck drivers. He was from the Bassa tribe of East Cameroon, speaking pidgin English sparingly like other French speakers. Although older than Daniel, he spent time with him whenever he came to Badoon and, therefore, hated that his boss was messing with his friend's proposed wife. He advised Daniel to organize a gang to beat Monsieur Louis, arguing that they had allowed him to exploit the people's timber to enrich him, and as if that wasn't enough, added a woman to increase his morale. But Daniel declined, stating that the white man interest was temporal and based on the exploitation of timber. He further said it was ungentlemanly to attack a stranger even if he misbehaved, and that he didn't force Susan to date him. Belong didn't believe he was a friend, such a timid man. After exhausting every avenue, he bowed like a dog with a tail between its legs and presented himself before his would-be father-in-law, Chief Abel. Daniel visited Chief Abel with a bottle of whiskey to formally complain. Chief Abel had not concluded his investigation on the issue when news broke that Daniel got fired. Chief Abel had just newly mounted the traditional stool after a hotly contested chieftaincy for 15 years. He was pragmatic and bold. Upon getting the news that Monsieur Louis had visited, the chief immediately summoned his council of elders. All of Monsieur Louis's workers were obligated to attend. The chief waited when everyone was comfortable. He stood up. "I welcome you all to my compound and village." He turned to Monsieur Louis. "Our community has welcomed your workers with open arms, and they take laws into their hands. As if that wasn't enough, they chase people's wives and daughters discriminately. Let me tell you, Monsieur Louis, that some of these accusations point straight at you. The community gave you timber, but I will not give you my daughter. Since timber exploitation began, we have lost trees, animals, and forests for more than 10 years. Even a third-class wood processing unit you have not constructed in any village or town. Have you taken the time to look at the contract you signed with government officials? Did you not promise to build a school, bring pipe-borne water, construct roads, and build bridges? You have invaded the Bakassi, the Bayonne, the Baisassi, the Bafal, the Mbo, and Bakindu lands. Of everything I have enumerated, can you tell me one accomplished? The answer is no. Therefore, I request Daniel's reinstatement with immediate effect, without which all your workers should leave our village and the forest." Chief Abel turned to his elders. "Fellow villagers, did I speak your mind?" "Yes," they all answered in unison. Monsieur Louis apologized and promised to make amends to better the lives of villagers. He equally bought drinks to entertain the attendees. Pa Asume got to the school campus. As he approached the administrative block, Ba, standing with Rose, quickly rushed towards him. "Pa Smith, how are you doing?" "My son, do you know me?" "Yes, Pa, you are Smith's dad." Rose joined them with tears running down her face. "Can you call Smith for me?" Pa Asume requested. "Pa, I'm sorry, Smith is not here right now. Let me tell you the truth. Smith traveled to Kumba, and he's not coming back. That's what Rose and I were talking about." Pa Asume looked down momentarily, then raised his face and stared at Rose. "Why are you crying, my daughter?" "Smith left without my knowledge, and this is painful because I thought he loved me." Pa Asume, deep in his pocket, pulled out 10,000 CFA and gave them. "My daughter, don't lament over a man who has decided to be irresponsible.